afternoon. This is the Long Hill Report. I'm Richard Morcom, and today we have the poet, the historian laureate of Sturbridge, Bob Breer, his partner in crime, SYLVIA Buck. And last time we had them, we went across country. Then they went on an odyssey, going Route 20 from East Coast to West Coast. We left off at Mount St. Helen, and they're going to bring us back to Mount St. Helen today.
I'd like to just make a little note about the trip to Oregon. We went out on historic U.S. Route 20 from Boston Harbor at Carson Beach with a peanut butter jar of Atlantic Ocean water. We took it to Newport, Oregon, which is on the Pacific Ocean, and poured it in. And this trip is coming back from there. Rather than seeing the same scenery as we did on Route 20, we came back on Interstate 84, starting in Portland, Oregon, down to Brigham, Utah, where we picked up Interstate 80. 84 does not end, it joins 80. However, there are no signs telling you that you're still on 84, except once in a great while, there'll be a sign that says 84. And it goes all the way to Scranton, Pennsylvania on Interstate 80, then branches off in 84, becomes 84 again, all the way to Sturbridge. They're parallel roads with 20 and 80, but the scenery is different. Going back to Mount St. Helens, we were visiting there, and there was a sign that said helicopter rides, that we could travel around Mount St. Helens in a helicopter. I thought, ooh. I looked at the price and thought better of that idea. There was another one that said, or you can fly into the crater of Mount St. Helens. All I had to do was ask my companion, would you like to take a helicopter ride into the crater? And she says, yes. She had seen it from a distance in 1988, but this was going to be different. So this is a picture on the screen of Mount St. Helens as you approach it. And it flows into the lava flow flowed into the Poodle River along with debris. And you probably remember all the trees that had dropped down the mountainside into Spirit Lake. And from there it went on following the Poodle River all the way to the Columbia River. It was an experience that we considered to be the highlight of our vacation in the trip out west. Along the way, we stopped at Fort Clatsop. This was the end of the journey for the Lewis and Clark expedition. They had left St. Louis by boat. They traveled over land, hauling all their equipment and sledges. They traveled on horseback, and they walked a lot. My main interest in it was knowing that one of the members of that crew was Thomas Proctor Howard, supposedly born in Brimfield. We've spent years trying to find where in Brimfield and still don't have a clue. But we went to Fort Clatsop and got a chance to see the rebuilt structures as they were when Lewis and Clark were there from 1804 to 1806. There's a picture of Lewis and Clark cabin inside, and SYLVIA is speaking with a volunteer working at Fort Clatsop and learning all about the fort itself. A side thing, I met an interpreter there who portrayed Thomas Proctor Howard the first year he became a ranger working at Fort Clatsop. So we had a nice chat about a man that I knew where supposedly he was born but couldn't find it. They originally were going to go to Cape Disappointment, but Lewis and Clark decided they didn't like Cape Disappointment, which was across the Columbia River from Fort Clatsop. So they picked up their belongings and came back across the Columbia and established this point of land where you could see the Pacific Ocean from on top of the hill that the fort is on.
Could I interrupt a minute about that bottle of water? When you dumped in the Atlantic water, what did you do?
Well, there were people that thought we messed up the ecology of the world by bringing Atlantic water to the Pacific and then bringing water from the Pacific back to Carson Beach. It became a goal as we went along that we would do this. I'm not sure that we started out thinking about bringing water to both coasts, but once the idea struck, we did it, and it was kind of fun to do.
Well, in that area of the world, when we went to see Mount St. Helens, we found that you could look north to see Mount Rainier at the same time. We don't have a picture of that right with us.
One of the places we went through on the way home, following the Columbia River and the Columbia Gorge, was what Sylvia calls the Dells, the Dalles.
The Dalles.
The Dalles, D-A-L-L-E-S. There's Massachusetts pronunciations, and there's Brooklyn, and there's out west, but how she got Dalles out, that's the way it's spoken out there. Many of the buildings in that area, in cities and towns, you'll find that the buildings are covered with murals, and the murals are depicting scenes on the Oregon Trail, scenes on the Lewis and Clark Trail, and they are really fantastic paintings, and they really give a history of the land going way back in time.
Sometimes when we visit a restaurant, we get a chuckle out of the signage in the restaurant. And here's one that we captured.
And I brought my own woman, so I was able to go in and eat. And it says on it, if you can't read that one, "We don't serve women here. Please bring your own." So if you follow the rules when you're in the other man's neighborhood.
Do they have good recipes for women?
I don't know.
I mean, you can take that one in a few
Yes,
different ways.
yes, you could.
Well, that young lady found out we were going to Oregon, going to Newport, and she says, "Oh, there's a great restaurant there." And she told us about it, and we found it, and probably the best meal we had was from the tip that waitress gave us.
So that was a restaurant that did serve women.
Yes.
Yes.
Sort of, yes.
But she came in anyway.
I wanted to bring so many pictures showing the geography of the land. You go through volcanic lands, cuts through volcanic outflows. It lines the road, volcanic outflows lines the road as big black walls, or some of them are like these other kinds of stone jutting out.
And the ink block in the center of the picture is just a shadow from the mountain on the other side of that little dip in the land. And as far as you can see on some of the roads, particularly in Nebraska, you can see for miles and miles that's just a straight road where the car may be coming at you once every mile. There'll be farmhouses with a grove of trees around it, and a lot of cattle, a lot of corn and wheat alongside the road. But automobiles, as we know it here on historic Route 20 in Massachusetts, is a far cry one from the other.
This picture shows the speed limit. Can you see it?
No.
'80 is the norm,
Oh, yes.
and you can slow down to 70, but they want you to keep up the speed.
Keep it up, yeah. Keep it up.
In Salt Lake City, we had a chance to visit the area and went out to the Great Salt Lake. I was kind of disappointed. I'd seen it years ago when the water's pretty much up to the information center, and now it's probably a half a mile out along the shoreline. A surprise I had when I was there was going to see where the speed trials are held, and found out that what looks like a forested area when you're thinking about where they are, it's really nothing there. No grandstands, nothing to watch speed trials. And I found out it's just salt. So it's like you're standing in fields of snow watching this.
Big salt pans, aren't they?
Is that the Bonneville Salt Flats?
Yes, Bonneville.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you, because I was just running through my head. What's the name of the salt flat? Bonneville.
I remember as a little boy they held the speed
Yes.
You know, who could be the fastest car in the world. Some of them at that time looked more like planes and cars.
Yeah, well, they reached the speed of aircraft in some of the cars that they were built for. A man pulled onto the salt flats right behind me. He was from Connecticut. And he says, "Where are the grandstands?" I said, the same question came to my mind because there's nothing there. I says, but if you watch, when they do have speed trials, there's people, there's probably a couple of hot dog stands and other things become erected, but no bleachers.
Did you enjoy was it too hot or was it hot? How was the temperature and everything? That's supposed to be a hot and dry place, isn't it?
We hit it at just a good temperature. What month? We went June and July, I think. June, late June.
We were very lucky weather-wise. I think we only saw rain in 3 weeks, once or twice.
So in the next show we do with you, you'll have gone to Burning Man. You don't know what Burning Man
No.
is?
No.
Then I will. It's a big hipster festival in a desert, out there, out west.
Okay.
And I think it's a place probably akin to the Great Salt Lake, but it's in the middle of summer, I believe.
Well, I've been in the West when it was brutally hot in August, so I was glad
So
not to be
You,
enduring
you're
that.
not going to go.
And
to
it was
Burning Man.
before air conditioning in the
Yeah.
car in those days.
One of the things we saw in Wyoming were buttes and mesas. I said buttes, they have a swimming suit contest or something. He says, no, not that kind of butte. And so there you see what a butte is. And you're driving along the flat land, seeing nothing, then just out of nowhere is a butte. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 of them right in a row.
Could you describe the butte? What is that?
It's like here's like the Grand Canyon where you've got all this land and it gets washed away when it was covered with the ocean, I guess. And so these stand out.
So there's sort of rock formations.
Yes.
Okay.
We overlooked mentioning the view of the state capital of Utah, Salt Lake City, in the sunset.
And
That's Salt Lake
the
City
decline
capital.
light.
We did not bring a picture of the Great Salt Lake, but it was there, although quite diminished from the drought in the area.
Salt Lake City is known for the Mormons being there in their temple, which is a gorgeous building. However, even members of the church are not invited to go into the temple. It's weddings, funerals, special occasions are held there, but normally it's not like you go to church on Sunday. And my understanding was that you had to go there only for the special events, otherwise it wasn't open to the public. The tabernacle, on the other hand, was, and at Salt Lake City, I think it's probably better known for the tabernacle where the huge pipe organ is. And I was fortunate enough the first time I went there that it was a Sunday service, and the choir has a full orchestra and the organ. When they play together, it's a sound you never forget.
That would be the Mormon
The
tabernacle.
Mormon tabernacle,
Tabernacle,
yes.
yes. So we were there on a Sunday and we thought, great, we'll hear the choir. Well, not this time. They were on tour, and so when we got back home, we found they were in Boston. And we went to Boston to hear them.
Sometimes the luck of the draw is
I guess.
not in your favor.
They have more long views here. And just an example of how beautiful the weather was.
Oh, you were lucky, or is it usual at that time of year?
Yes. These are mesas and buttes, more of them.
Well, those buttes don't look unpleasant, so I guess.
No,
calling them
no.
buttes-
Yeah, they're buttes in their own right.
Then again, how we all. And this is a house here that you have up on
This is a Pony Express station.
the.
That's an original station. It was moved, I think it's, trying to think of the name of the town it's in. It's donated by Mrs. C.A. Williams. This was built in 1860 and 1861 as an original station. And this was moved and restored by Gothenburg Post 64, the American Legion, accepted by the city of Gothenburg and dedicated to all pioneers who passed this way to win and hold the West. And so, again, this was a Pony Express station. In Southbridge, there is a monument in front of the post office that was dedicated in the time of celebrating Washington's, I think it was his 300th birthday. And on one side of the monument is a Pony Express horse and rider. Unfortunately, somebody else owns it now because it was pried off the stone monument and it's just a shadow of what was there. And I've tried to find an original picture that I could have a new one cast and maybe donate it to the Southbridge Post Office. It deserves to be up there.
Was that stolen?
It was stolen,
Yes.
evidently.
It was copper or something?
Probably bronze.
Brass,
Bronze.
bronze.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, is there the next, moving right along?
Pony Express Station.
The Pony Express didn't last that long.
No, it
just
didn't.
a few years.
And then they had the
You wouldn't
telegraph.
last that long either if you were riding those horses.
Well, I wouldn't even drive. I like the easy way of doing things. Cars are a great thing. But what is it? The telegraph was, they were able to get the telegraph and it became
Right.
superfluous.
And riders were being shot too, so not everybody wanted to be a Pony Express
They were being
rider.
shot by Indians or by rovers or?
Probably by Indians, and maybe those that would rob the post.
Yeah.
Probably took a few lives. On the Interstate 80, we found a neat arch across all four lanes. There's a dual highway and the east and west lanes. This archway went across it, and there's a sign on it, and it's called Archway. I looked on the map, and I didn't find the town of Archway, but it's just before you get into Lincoln, Nebraska.
It's over the Great Platte River Road. Over I-80.
And for those of you that watch the American Archaeologist, the Pickers, we had the chance to stop there on our way out to Oregon. Unfortunately, the Pickers were either on vacation or out of town. We didn't see them. This time we stopped again. Didn't see them this time either. I guess they're on the road a lot. And Danielle wasn't there. My goal was to see if the tattoos Danielle has were real or were they artificial. I still don't know. And Sylvia doesn't want me to write a letter and ask.
She's got many kinds of
Still, we
hair.
admire that wonderful childlike sense of wonder. It is a lovely, and maybe you will get to meet him again and say, be able to say that. And,
Maybe they've been to Brimfield.
well, why wouldn't they?
But I know,
They didn't inform us they were
They
coming.
don't tell anybody they're coming. Somebody knew. But
You're going to have to be lucky to find that out, I guess.
But it's a thrill to go through the two buildings they have there in LeClaire. And once in a while, Mike will talk about being on the Mississippi River, and they are. They're up on the side of a hill, and you look out and you're looking down on the Mississippi. It probably is no more than 3/4 of a mile away from their shops.
And they can see it.
Of course,
They
they
can
have
see it.
now have a second home, you might say, where, in Tennessee?
Nashville.
And so we'll have to go and visit them
I
there.
guess so.
Yes. Make an appointment, perhaps.
The Mississippi River Rapids rest area, I'm not sure it is. Sylvia seems to think it may have been in Ohio. After a while, when you travel day after day, it doesn't become a blur, but it's hard to go back in your memory bank and say, oh yeah, here's the picture. Where was it?
It says
But-
right here, the Mississippi River Rapids Rest Area.
But we didn't say it at this show, but a lot of the trip that we took was through the efforts of Brian Farr, who now lives in Chester, Massachusetts, up in the Berkshire Hills. And Brian did this trip, and then he wrote a book about what he calls Historic U.S. Route 20. By the way, it's the longest road into the United States. Route 66, what everybody knows about, was the longest, but because of interstates and other changes in Route 66, now Route 20 is the longest highway in the
Consistently
country.
Route 20, coast to coast.
A point that Sylvia has made numerous times is people go on vacation and they go to the mountains, or they take a cruise, or they go to Disney World, and they repeat it year after year after year. They always go to the mountains, or they always go to
Cape
Disney
Cod
World. And we're saying, once you travel something like US Route 20, you say, why are they going with so much of this beautiful country to see? They're missing it. And our kids have talked about the trips we used to take when they were younger, both Sylvia's children and my children. We took many trips as a family to Alabama to be with the friends I made when I was in the Air Force. And they talk about the things they saw that they otherwise would probably never get to see, even in their adulthood. And the last leg of the journey, again going back to the fact that we were, did I miss anything in there? The Mississippi Park, okay. This is a photograph of us right after we poured the water into the Pacific Ocean in Newport, Oregon. It was quite a journey. We behaved very well. We squabbled maybe twice. Oh, and it was always about the same thing. I'd say the road goes this way, and she'd say the road goes that way. No, it's this way. I know it goes this way. The map said.
I was holding the map.
But the GPS says, and I think there was a conflict between GPS and a real road map. I would offer this suggestion. You can buy state maps with it in more detail, but if you get an atlas, and it covers the states, all the states, and if you get the right one, it will be all the states and the provinces of Canada. And you can mark the map as I did here. I think you'd probably have to put it down there so they can see. You mark the route out, and so you can easily follow it. You can easily find your way, no matter what the road is. Keeping in mind that historic US 20 goes from Boston to Newport, US 30 and US 6, both start in Massachusetts, both go to the West Coast. And I keep threatening her that we're going to leave someday and we're going to take 30 out and we'll take 6 back, and it'll be parallel, but the scenes will be different. You want to mention how far we went?
Well, by the time we returned to Sturbridge, we'd covered about 7,000 miles. But that's just a blip on the map.
Well,
More to be covered.
if Robert Frost were still around, he'd have to write another poem. And do you know what that poem would be?
What would it be?
The Road More Traveled.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Very good.
Well, you meet a lot of nice people that way, and when they find out what you're doing, they take an interest in the trip and say, we should do that, we should do that. Now, did anybody do it? I don't know.
We know of one couple, at least one couple, that has gone Route 20 subsequent to our talking about it. We don't know if we talked them into it, but
The ones from Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
no, local people.
Yeah. I had a couple I met in Pennsylvania, and they had just bought I call it a mini camper. And they listened to what we had to say, and they said, we're going to do it. Well, this past summer, they did the trip, and they had a fantastic journey. And wrote back thanking us, and I said, well, thank Brian Farr. We'd sent him up to Brian's book, and they followed it pretty well.
Now, you can travel anywhere with a lot of thought and planning, or with a minimum of thought and planning, a skeleton outline of what you'd like to see along the way and how you're going to do it. But we like to travel without reservations. That is, not to know where we're going to stay that night. Oh, we have a pretty good idea, but it's not until late in the afternoon that we begin to zero in on our night's lodging.
No camping. We didn't do any camping.
No
No,
camping
no.
for us anymore. We've done that. Been there, done that. No, don't want to do it anymore.
What you pay for a campground nowadays, you can stop at the El Cheapo
That's probably
motels.
true.
And we found, we didn't stay at Hilton or any of the bigger chains. We stayed at the smaller chains. There's Motel 6s and Red Roof Inns, and found them very comfortable and clean. You're just looking for a place to sleep.
That's true.
You're going to get your meals probably in a local restaurant in the morning or wherever you are on the road. And I was skeptical that we'd find places in some of the far out places in the West where there's a long distance between roads. And so we around 3:30, we're starting to plan, right, where's a city coming up, then we can stay there, or a large town. And it worked out well.
I guess so. You look healthy and happy, and so it must have worked.
And you can do it very inexpensively doing it that way. We did it, the two of us, and we ate well, we slept well, we saw so much, and it was less than $3,000 round trip.
That's not bad at all.
So you pay that, some people pay that for one airplane ride going overseas.
We didn't see any live volcanoes, though.
No, you sound a little disappointed there. Now, on your trip into the volcano, I don't think you really wanted it to be live.
Oh, no, although it was still
It would be
steaming.
interesting.
It was still
Yeah.
steaming.
There are two
yes.
steam vents.
And
coming up.
there's a no dome beginning to form, just to remind us that it's not dead. It's pretty nearly alive in there.
But you were happy to have timed it. So
Yes,
it
we were
wasn't
glad that we
yeah.
didn't have to crawl
yeah.
out on the rocks and
That's good.
do it ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great experience to
It
go.
had to have been. To do it in a helicopter like
Yeah,
that and
yeah.
go into the mouth or whatever they call
Right,
it.
it dropped right down into it, and the pilot circled around inside, so we got a really a bird's eye view of the inside of the crater of Mount St. Helens, and that'll be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for both of us.
We're not going back there, eh?
Not tomorrow.
Okay.
Monday, maybe.
All right. All right. We'll think about it another
Richard,
time.
thank you for having us on your show.
It is our pleasure here at TV Charlton, and it's very interesting. And as I say, Bob is the big history man, and he has a partner in crime. So
Yes, and we have a good time.
not that there's anything you can be prosecuted for.
No.
Not yet.
We laugh a lot.
That's the important thing. That's good. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.